Hello, 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 y'all. I am fortunate enough to be here today with Mr. Nuno. Nuno, who are you and what are you doing here today?
So, hello. First of all, it's a pleasure to be here talking. I am Nuno. I'm a 19-year-old student, TEDx organizer, and an entrepreneur. Recently, I've been focusing on this kind of organizing these events, but also focusing on my entrepreneurship part, which, to be honest, I think that it kind of is related to one another.
Mm,
And I'm here to talk about really on what a TEDx really is and what is on the backstage of a TEDx that I think that it's crucial for people to know, because there are people that think that it's this impossible thing to do. There are people that really do not know that it's possible for you to do, and there are people that just think that it's just an event and it's nothing that special. But I think that TEDx's are really a kind of extraordinary event to do. And yeah, so I'm here for it.
cool. Well, first, for things first, I know you and I chatted a bit before we kind of hit record here, but you've got a very global English accent. Which TEDx event were you the one organizing?
So I've organized TEDx, which is an university kind of event. And my English really comes from what I've been learning here in Portugal. I'm from Portugal, by the way. But yeah, so my TEDx actually was associated with an university that it belongs to SESPO. And yeah, my English also helped me on that because our TEDx was in English, as we wanted to do that as an universal event. So yes, my English comes from myself, but also it helped me a lot organizing my TEDx as well.
Awesome. So that is Porto, Portugal, correct?
Yes, correct. It's sports.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. And so for you, I've had a few conversations with other TEDx organizers, and one thing that I've learned is it's a lot of work, and you don't get paid anything. So you're really learning from this experience, and maybe you do it for your network, but there's a lot of different reasons you may have chosen to do it. What was your motivation to do it a year ago when you were, just 18? That's a really scary thing to do, to organize a TEDx talk. How did you kind of go about making that decision for yourself?
So that idea came to me when I was, as you said, 18. And it was a thing that I was watching a lot of TEDx videos, and I did not really know what a TEDx was. I thought it was like associated with TED, but what's the difference here? And I had this idea on mind that I have a thing that is, I cannot stop. Like, I have to be doing something at the very least constantly. So I need a project on my life. I need something to do. And I was in that university, which is the health university from the Institute Health University from SESPO. And I was like thinking, what can I do here to be more active on the community? Because I have this thing that I wanted to be some kind of active, and I wanted to have like a paper there, a role there. And I thought, okay, maybe I can do like a scientific event. And that's where I met like TEDx and what TEDx meant. And TEDx offered me the opportunity to just have like an event that had like its recognition and its brand spread globally. And I wanted to just like kind of have the I had the opportunity, so I wanted to just have that role of organizing it because it's a project, and I thought, okay, this is my chance. So yes, it's a lot of work. It was probably one of the projects that I worked my ass off to do. It was like really, really hard for me to just like cope with everything because, as I said, it was an event that was associated with an university. So I had this role of where I had to communicate with my partners that were working with me, my team, and I had to work with the university, which is not easy at all. But I was not being paid anything. But what I really had inside of me was one, I can network. Two, it's a project. And three, I will learn like a lot of things from here because my motivation is like, okay, now, and I can say it now because I've done it. Now I probably can do a scientific event or another type of event much better than what I would do before. And I have that credibility as well. So I wanted this kind of credibility and this like check that I have
Mhm.
what it takes to build this kind of event. And yes, it was hard, but I think that it compensated. Of course, that getting the team, it's the first step, and that's not easy at all because, as you said, Ryan, you are not being paid anything, and I have hours and hours and hours of either meetings or just like putting myself to work and to contact institutions, contact sponsorships, and that kind of stuff. And I live in a city, excuse me, I live in a city in Porto that is not downtown. And here it's not that easy to attract people relating to science. It's not that easy. Mainly like talking to people and telling them, come, it's going to be interesting enough for you to come. People were not that really interested on it. So you have to put that bit of a work on top of that just to know how to attract your target and how to attract
Mm,
people around you. I think that also is that extra work you have to do.
mm,
Yes, it's really hard to organize a TEDx, but I think that I've learned so much with it that
mm.
for me right now, and I have to admit that when I've ended and when I finished the TEDx, I was like, I am never gonna do another TEDx. But right now I can say that I wanted to do it again and I'm very
Really?
interested. Yeah, really, I want to do just another type of event because I feel like I've learned so much from it that probably the next TEDx event that I'm going to do is going to be much better. And I have this
Yeah.
thing that I want to improve myself, improve my work.
Awesome. And so you kind of mentioned the first step once you made that decision, hey, I'm going to organize a TEDx event. The next step was putting your team together. What did that look like for you? And this is more of a personal question. I'm curious what kind of global brand credibility, you've been in Porto, Portugal, does TEDx have as an entity? Is there as much credibility with TEDx in Portugal as there is in other places like
Mhm.
the US?
So first of all, talking about the team, so I had this idea, as you said, and I have a really close friend in the university, and I was like, okay, she's crazy enough to do this with me, so I'm going to invite her, and she was my co-organizer, which is Sufiali. So she was my co-organizer, and we wanted to do this team, and we were looking for people that we trusted. So it's true that probably at first you have to really invite people that you trust, mainly because now relating to the second point that you mentioned, TEDx actually does not have a lot of recognition here in Portugal, as it does in other places. I can name places as Australia, US, UK, and even other places as Spain. There are countries and regions around the globe that probably have a bigger impression on what TEDx really means, but in Portugal, that doesn't happen as much. So it's really hard for you to just invite and put together a team of people that really don't know what that event is and really don't
Mm,
have the kind of the notion or the knowledge to know that TEDx really matters. So I talked to a couple of friends and people that I knew that would like help me and people that were talented, and yeah, so they helped me out. It's true, I had, of course, a main role of trying to organize the stuff, me and Sophia, but our team helped us a lot. So we had team members that focused on the part of sponsorships, another on the part of communications, and I think that the main point on there was to just, I needed some people around like every course that was on the university. I need people here and there so they could attract people for our event too. Because as I said, as TEDx is not that kind of big brand or it's not that event that people really talk about in Portugal, it's really
mm,
important for you just to have people on your team that can attract other people to it. And I think that there are some TEDx events really growing in Portugal. And I can mention TEDx Porto, for example, TEDx Aveiro. There are kind of events that are growing, but still people really do not listen to that. People really do not care right now. But I think that that's the magic behind TEDx events organized on universities, which is you are creating this awareness of young people that in the future probably they will hear about TEDx Sport and they'll say, okay, that's an event that I want to come because I
mm.
love like my last TEDx. So yeah, getting the team, it's hard, but I think that even though it can be hard in some countries, because I know there are countries where people just like apply to be a volunteer, even though it can be hard to get a team, I think that if you trust people enough, you can make things great from there.
And after put in the work to find people like Sophia and the rest of the team members, what was the next step after that?
So after organizing the team, we really just had to create this kind of brand. So even prior to getting the team, I created a poster because I'm a very like visual person. So I need to have these kind of visuals behind what I want to do, behind the concept. And I was thinking about the future because I love to talk about the future on this kind of scientific
Mhm.
area. What's going to happen on health? What's going to happen on research? So I got the title from the TEDx and the intro from the TEDx um, even prior to getting the team. So the next step was first talking to the university and really just like do the application to TEDx, registering every team member. And
Mhm.
I think that what is really necessary after getting the team, it's one, you have to teach them or you have to give them resources for them to know
Mhm.
what are they working on. So you have this role, your role is getting sponsorships, and what I did was just giving them links for them to know TEDx, the rules of TEDx, the guidelines and everything. And it was like getting the venue, the dates, and the main sponsors, so the people that would help you, the partners that would help us the most. And this was the very first steps, which was talking to the university, getting the partners, and the date. And I think that these are crucial steps, which you cannot never like skip, and you can never like do other things after, in this case, before you do these, because it's very crucial for you to just have a date and at least partners that you can talk to,
Yeah.
because as it's a no as it's a volunteer event, you really do not have that big of a budget to invest, so you need partners. And of course, as it's an university kind of event, you need to the university to allow that.
Hmm. So once you've got the team, you've got the sponsors, you've got the venue selected, you've got the date, you've got some of the branding and the promo material. What's after that?
After that, I really think that it was one, building our website, and our website was a big part of it. I did it as well because that's where you create really the atmosphere of the event.
Hmm.
And I did the website because the next step was to invite speakers. And how did I do that? I don't know if other TEDx organizers actually do that. For me, I did it as that, which I contacted institutions here in Porto and Aveiro and Lisbon, I think, for them to select a speaker and a worker there to come to our TEDx. So I've invited I3S. I think it was I3S. I had people from the University of Aveiro and from other research centers. From actually, I had people from the project Vento Connect, which belongs to the University of Porto. And those universities and those research centers, they were the ones to select someone and to ask someone if they wanted to participate with us. And to me, it came as a surprise that not that many of institutions were that easy to contact, because sometimes it's easy to contact, but it's hard for them to get that kind of, okay, so I have a student contacting me. He's 18 years old.
Hmm.
He belongs to this university. Should I trust him? Does he has like credibility enough? And for your first TEDx event, it's really hard to contact institutions. But if you contact enough of them, I guarantee you and I assure you that you'll have enough responders to create this board. So that actually was the next step, which is I have the speakers now and I need to create a program. And I had the idea, which I defend right now, which is I think that it's crucial for people to actually connect art and science together, which is sometimes a concept that people really do not talk about, or a concept that people just marginalize at all. And I think that's unfair because art can be a science, and art is the main point or the start point to criticize science. and we
Mm.
see that a lot of breakthroughs in sciences and a lot of history moments and periods in science are criticized by art, and that has an output. And I think that art being the main point for that critical thought behind science, I think that's crucial. So when creating the program, I had this feeling where I wanted to invite artists. So actually, then I talked to a couple of friends of mine that studied photography on a school here, and they recommended me a teacher. So I talked to that teacher, who was a photographer, and she was very interested on making this connection between science and art. And then I did not want this to be a scientific event. I wanted to be a TEDx event. And TEDx is all about diversity
Mm.
and creating these like a lot of elements in the program. So for example, I had a student from the University of Porto was working at I3S. His name is João Ribeiro, and João really did a great job because instead of going there and talk about his work at I3S, he actually talked about, for example, what looks like to be a scientist, what is
Mm.
to be a scientist. So I wanted to create this board of, yes, I have a scientific part, but I also have a more relaxed part, which is crucial because I want my targets to know what their future really looks like, and that was like
Mm.
the main point of the event. And I wanted actually to create some awareness on that kind of relating science and art together. So I created the program with my team, and we had a couple of troubles here and there because we had people that really couldn't come anymore. We had a problem with the university where our date was not compatible with theirs, so we had to postpone the event, and that kind of gave us some schedule problems. But we fixed it all, and in the end, I had a program with short films. One short film directed by Carla Isabel, which was portrayed on the TEDx event. I had that scientific part that was crucial. I had good coffee breaks, I have to admit. And I had these scientific parts that really was creating the atmosphere of the event. So the next step after those initial steps that you give is really to create the program, create atmosphere, and launch yourself to your target. So creating a website, for example, and just you say like, here are the tickets, here is what you can do, come to our event, and you try to attract people.
Mm. So I got a question to hit on kind of what you talked about with the website. So I know a lot of the organizers I've talked to, I find normally there's two different ways a TEDx talk is organized or themed. And I could be wrong, but what I'm seeing is it's either kind of like you, where you choose the theme prior. In your case, where art and science kind of play off each other and meet. Some will choose the theme prior, and then some will just put the site up or have a few people in mind that they think, okay, that person has an awesome idea. They haven't brought it to the TEDx stage yet. We're gonna put the website up and hope enough awesome people apply with cool ideas. Then we'll choose the theme. Do you notice that kind of happening as well, or are you
Yes,
seeing?
no, no, totally. I do notice that a lot. Actually, I think that it's more usual for people to actually go for the second option, which you create a website, you create the branding, and then you just launch yourself, and you hope that speakers and people that are interested in being a first speaker or just participating in a TEDx event for the first time, you kind of hope that they contact you. But I really think that depends on what brand is behind that. For example, TEDx Sport is a really big event, and it has
Yeah.
a really big organization behind that. So if you have a big team, and if you are connected to the town hall, if you are connected to really big institutions, it's probably that. For example, I will choose that second option. So I will launch myself, and then I just like select these speakers and create the theme around that. For me, as I am actually an impulse person as well, I do act on impulse. I chose the first one, probably because our website would not be that much of a or would not have that much of traction at first. So I really had to just like contact institutions first and hope that they would reach out to us. But yeah, actually, I think that before having the speakers, I had like one or two speakers that I had in mind and I had contacted and I had their confirmation and they were like portrayed on the website, but then it was like missing another speakers. And it is much easier for you to contact speakers and institutions with your website than prior to that, because you have a website, you have this domain, and you have some kind of credibility. And yeah, I think that it's even more organized, and I think it's more secure for you to go for your second option. And that's something that I've learned from example from my experience. I think that if I would do now a second TEDx, I would go for a second option and I would like launch the website. And probably if no one reached out to me, I'll reach out to people with the website and with my team.
Hmm. And now that you've kind of learned how to actually do this, you've done it once, you've made all the, the mistakes, the things that you needed to learn to kind of really know how to do this. Obviously, you're, well spoken enough with it that you can, talk about it here. Are you thinking about doing and organizing a second, a third, a fourth, and so forth?
Yes, exactly. I am thinking actually. I made a lot of mistakes on my first TEDx. And I can tell you these. I was very anxious and I was like, I do not want for the day to come. Like in the day before, I was like, I just want this to go through. I just want to finish the event, because I was in a lot of stress because I knew that I had these and these mistakes. I knew that were things that I need to solve on the day. I had like times in on stage that I had to just improvise, but it really worked. So I think that because I have this knowledge of what I did wrong and have this knowledge of what I did right, and now I really know better on how you can talk to TEDx or how you can contact them. I do know better the guidelines and what you should do. I think that now I feel prepared to do another, a third one, a fourth one, probably with different things and different fields. But I do want to do that mainly in the field, probably in the field of biotech, in the field of area, in the field of arts, sorry, in the field of, I don't know, AI, for example, which is really growing and it's related to my startup. But yeah, I am planning on doing a second one mainly, but right now I'm just like really focused on my startup braining. But yeah, I promise to do a second one. And yeah, I hope that it's going to be connected to my startup, by the way, which really means that it really went well. But yeah, I do encourage actually people that get scared sometimes and people get really upset that sometimes their events don't go as well. And even if my event didn't really happen, I think that I'll go for a second chance, because even if your event goes wrong, even if no one shows up, or if your public is made of 2 to 3 people, it's worth it. You're going to learn a lot from it. And I do have to admit that if you have few people, it's even better because it's more relaxed and you have more of a window and a bigger window to just be in a more controlled environment for you to learn things and not to panic.
Hmm. And so, as a one-time TEDx organizer planning to do two, three, however many it may be, and come to, what guidance or knowledge did you realize when you were reaching out to these potential speakers or contacting them? What perception did they have compared to what the reality was? And kind of what information would you share to change the delta between those two?
So I think that when I contacted speakers and institutions, first the event at first was portrayed as it would be like this big event, because me and our team were really like trusting our alumni from the university to go to the event. That didn't happen at all because, as I said, the date had to be postponed. And I live in a community, or here is a community where people really do not go to these events.
Hmm.
And I think that's changing bit by bit. I think it's changing. But because of that, at first the event was portrayed as it would be like this big event and this great of an opportunity. And speakers, I think that speakers had that kind of notion. They thought that probably would be like a big event. But then as things were being rolled and things would be like developed, I kept in touch with the speakers and I kept telling them some updates. For example, we had a sponsorship that was a sponsor that was McDonald's. And we told them, for example, okay, now we have these and these sponsors, for example, for coffee breaks and kind of stuff. And then prior to the event, I also explained how many people will be there that had bought a ticket, how many people will be there, and I showed them and I gave them a link for the venue so they will see like the stage and what stage looked like. But yeah, it was like a very cozy event. I think that it was more relaxed and more cozy than what I expected it to be and I expect them to be. And I think that I change here a thing, which is probably I will not tell them how much of a big event it will be, but how much of an opportunity you'll give them. Because
Mm.
even if your event is little, you probably will have the opportunity to share your talks and share your sections in the TEDx official YouTube, which is great. So even if the speaker is, you know, performing and speaking at a very few people, or if the event is really, doesn't have that much of a quality, or the stage is not that big, the video quality is not that big, you will always have your name associated with TEDx. So you'll
Mm.
forever be a TEDx speaker. You'll have your talk probably presented and shown on the official TEDx YouTube, and that gives you a credibility. Actually, I know a speaker, João, for example, that he was on an interview and they asked about, so you participated on a TEDx. And even if the TEDx was a small TEDx event, it really gives you the credibility. So probably I'd say, do not talk about how much of a big event will be. Talk about what that opportunity really means. What is going to happen after your event? The video is going to be published, and talk about how that opportunity is going to be related to them and what are the benefits of getting that opportunity, which is really that credibility and that presence associated with TEDx that in Portugal probably is not that big, but mainly on the main fields of science and art. You really are not looking for local credibility. You're looking for global credibility, which TEDx offers.
Mm. And for that, you're talking about the size of the opportunity when you're talking to potential speakers or when you're talking to potential sponsors, or both.
Both. So
Oh,
for sponsor, of course, for sponsors, at first when I was talking to them, I had to, you know, say to them, I'm going to have these and these, and this event is going to look like this, because you're talking to a sponsor and you're
mhm.
trying to sell them your brand. You're trying to convince them to sponsor your event. And mainly where I live, it's really hard for getting these sponsors for scientific events, because I live in an area that is not scientific at all, and science is
Mm.
not talked at all. But if you are a good seller, if you can talk people into it, you get the sponsors. And again, I'll change this kind of probably communication. Probably I'll talk to them of how much of an opportunity it will be, because you can have your sponsors shown on your videos. Probably talk like you're going to have your logo here and here and here, and I talked about that, but I think that I'll talk even more and highlight more that fact, because you do not want to get your sponsors wrong and talk them and tell them things are not true at all, not going
Right.
to happen at all. You want to convince them in a truthful and sincere way, of course.
And how many speakers did you end up having at the event?
I ended up having, I think, 6 speakers, but then I had I had there a short film that was shown, and the short film was made just on purpose for TEDx. I cannot count that as a speaker because it was not
Sure.
really
Right.
a TEDx talk, but it was part of it. So I had
Cool.
this friend of mine, and then I also had a kind of round table that was just like the public could ask the speakers questions and other
Cool.
people questions, just to create these kind of debate thing, so they would like discuss ideas. As I said, it was like a really it was a small event,
Hmm.
but I think that for a first event it went good. But of course, then for my second and third and fourth event, I plan on having many more
Hmm.
speakers, and having many more people working on it.
Interesting. And for, I'm assuming you're still in contact with those 6 speakers that you had at your
Yeah.
TEDx event, right? Okay. What impact on their lives or their businesses or their research have you seen, or has nothing changed for them?
So for the people that I've been contacting, which is mainly João and Simão, I know that both of them use their TEDx on their of course on their, for example, LinkedIn and their bio, and I think they changes the opportunities that they get. So for example, for jobs interviews, for projects, for applying for PhDs or whatever, TEDx on your profile and telling people that you are a speaker, it really impacts you. And it's, of course, it's not direct because people are not going to be upfront and say, oh, you are a TEDx speaker, so you have this job, or you have this program that I'm going to give you, and this opportunity that is going to be offered to you because you are a TEDx speaker. But it has an impact on that. For the other speakers, I have not yet seen impact because I really did not search yet. But yes, I can see that it's, for example, on their bio, and I can see that they use that as for proposals, for applications, for, I don't know, like programs and doctoral programs, mainly on the field of research. It really matters
Mhm.
on that scientific output that you have, and it counts also as how much of a big scientist you are in the
Mhm.
community.
And what do you see? You mentioned before that TEDx brand still doesn't have that, it doesn't hit the same way as it does in places like, let's say, the UK or the US or Australia. Do you see TEDx getting that strength of brand in Europe in the coming years?
I think that because I see a lot of TEDx events happening right now, I think that yes, I do see that it probably more universities and more cities and regions will be applying to do the TEDx, and they'll be doing the TEDx. And I think, of course, that if you have many cities doing a TEDx in your country, probably people in the community and people from that country will be more aware of what a TEDx really means, and
Mhm.
probably they want to go to a TEDx. I think that yes, I do see that growth coming, but I think that it'll be excellent for TED, the mother organization themselves, to come to Europe probably and do a TED event, because
Mhm.
I do see that the impact that it has, for example, on the US, it's much bigger than in Europe because they have those official events and they have those important people really talking there. And I think that if people see that that works in Europe too, probably they'll want to just, okay, now I want to do a TEDx, and okay, now I want to join and to watch and to participate in an event such as a TEDx. I do
Mhm.
see that growth coming, and I think that the much people are aware of it, the much people know about TED and TEDx, they'll be more interested in coming for these events.
Hmm. That's really interesting. And I'm gonna ask a question that I think maybe some listeners here are having at the top of their head. Your TEDx event was near Porto in Portugal. You contacted a few different scientific researchers and some artists just in your local community. If there were someone from outside, like way outside, not just of Porto, not just out of Portugal, but out of Europe, or maybe from another country within Europe, or let's say someone in South Africa, someone in Australia, someone from wherever in the world that's far outside of Portugal, let's say they approached you with an idea worth spreading, what would have to happen for you to say yes to that idea? Or was it just kind of a clean slate, draw your line in the sand, no, nobody from outside of my community is allowed in here?
So of course that we did not invite people that were out of Portugal even, or beyond the 3 hour drive, because it would be very hard for us to host that person here at the event, because we, of course, that when we think of people that are distant from your community, it's really hard for you because you have to host them, give them a place to sleep, of course, and give them and pay them, in this case, the the rides that they have and these locations that are going to happen there. So for us, it would be very, very hard to get that opportunity. But I think that if a speaker was interested in coming and it was from, for example, from Australia, I really needed to go big, and probably I needed to go bigger than the event that happened. I think that if I had the chance and the possibility, which means if I had sponsors and if I had money enough to bring that person, I would. Of course, there are many opportunities, and actually, it's interesting that, for example, we have here a summit in Porto, which is the Oporto Biomedical Summit, which is organized by the students of the Students Association from ICBAS, which is a university here in Porto. I think that, for example, they posted that if you wanted, you could give another participants your house and you could give them the opportunities to sleep at your home, and you'll have, for example, a discount. So they are the proof that there are always ways for you to go around those problems. If I had the opportunity, I probably would, of course, talk to my team and talk to that speaker and just say, okay, so now we have a speaker from outside. Is anyone willing to just give them a room? Anyone willing to just like give them, I don't know, just like their a bed, for example, for them to sleep here in the community? And of course, for the dislocations, and even if the speaker did not agree on sleeping at someone's home on a host family, we would probably go to just like another sponsors, and we will have to go big probably, because sponsors sometimes give us just like a, a bit of money, and they give us not that much of money for and that much of a budget to just like be able to pay for a trip between Australia and Portugal, for example.
Mhm.
So I think it's really about contacting other sponsors or giving just like another plan for that.
Okay. What if let's just play with that example. What if this hypothetical speaker from Australia said, "Hey, you know what, Nuno? I value the TEDx brand. I think it'd be a super cool trip for me to learn about the culture in Portugal. I have an idea that fits really well with what you're trying to do. I would cover all the living, all the travel, all the hotels." Then what would your answer be?
That'll be yes, of course. And I think that it'll be even more important, and that will actually impact me, because I think that someone that is willing to just, come into Portugal and as we are talking from Australia to Portugal and paying for everything, I think that really gives me the impression that okay, people really value TEDx, and TEDx is worthy of value, and it's worthy of these expenses, because it really impacts you as a person and impacts you as a professional, of course.
And I know we're running short on time here, so I'll ask you one last question here. After this experience of organizing a TEDx event, you've learned a lot. What would you say is one lesson that you learned that you would want aspiring speakers, professional speakers, and or entrepreneurs who speak to other business to know from a TEDx organizer's perspective?
Really do trust yourself and the event. I think that it's the main message that I have to give here, which is if you trust the organization and if you trust yourself, you have this script, and they are going to be able to give you the stage, and the stage is yours to talk. So sometimes speakers are just like, and people that are related to business, they are really scared, and sometimes they really do not trust these organizers because they're young. But sometimes young minds do great things, and I think that TEDx volunteers are a good example of that, because we have many TEDx volunteers that are really young, and they will give you the stage for you to speak. So if you trust your organizer, that's everything you need.
Awesome. And if I've gotten, imagine I'm listening here, I'm an aspiring speaker or a professional speaker or an entrepreneur, and I'm thinking, okay, Nuno, he's thinking of putting together his upcoming TEDx event next year, something like that. I've got a lot of questions for him. Where can I find him on the internet?
Of course, so you can find us and you can contact me through our website, which is online. TEDxUX.com. And of course, you can find me on the internet as well as my personal LinkedIn, which is Nuno S. Almeida. And you can also follow up my startup, which is going to be my main point of contact from now on, which is brainingai.com. And through these websites, you can just like find me and talk to me. And I'm going to be, and I am willing to help you, of course. So contact me if you are interested on being hosted, because I have the pleasure to host you in an upcoming TEDx event, of course.
Awesome. Well, guys, if you've been listening and you found this valuable, you've loved what Nuno has been able to share with you, you've got a friend who's thinking about speaking, you've got an entrepreneur friend that is building their business, they're thinking about, they want to go to Portugal. I think, hey, why not, see if we can land a TEDx talk in Portugal while we're there. If you've got a friend that's a professional speaker that you think needs to hear the knowledge he just shared, please send this to them. And if you've enjoyed this, please rate it, please review it, and we'll go from there. Thanks, Nuno. Cheers, y'all.
Thank you very much.